Hi everyone, this is the Nordic Venture Show, your guide to the exciting world of Nordic startups and venture capital. In today's episode, we're exploring a startup called Ivan.
Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at Aven. They're a data and AI platform that is getting a lot of attention lately, and we're going to see if they really live up to their claims. You know, they say they're the one platform to stream, store, and serve data on any cloud.
Yeah.
So pretty ambitious stuff. We've got their website and a couple other things to help us figure all this out. But, looking at their materials, one of the things that jumped out at me right away was how much they're leaning into open source. Like, it's everywhere on their site. But they're also trying to sell themselves as like the easy button for managing all your data in the cloud, which, sounds pretty great in theory, but
Yeah.
how does that really work?
Okay.
Especially for, big companies that need to worry about security and all those kinds of things. So to help us break all of this down, I've got our expert here with me. So what are your first impressions of Aven? Anything that stands out to you, good or bad?
I think the big thing that I'm seeing is that they're trying to bridge this gap between the open source world and companies. It's a tough thing to do.
Yeah.
Because they're basically saying you can get the flexibility and the new stuff from open source, but you can still have everything be secure and reliable, which is what businesses need. But the question is, can they actually do that?
Yeah, that's what I want to know. Because it's one thing to say it. There's another thing to actually do it. Especially when you look at what they're actually offering. They've got this whole stream, store, serve thing going on, where they break down their services into those three categories. Like under stream, they have Apache Kafka and Apache Flink, which sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie to me. Then for store, they've got like a million different databases. PostgreSQL, MySQL, even this thing called AlloyDB Omni, which is just a mouthful. And then for serve, they're talking about ClickHouse and OpenSearch. So yeah, it's like they just went to the open source store and bought one of everything. Can you help us understand what all this stuff actually does? And is it actually relevant for someone like you who's already working with data all the time?
Okay, sure. It is a lot of different technologies, but I think it makes sense when you look at it like this. So streaming. Think of Apache Kafka like a big city, and all the information is flowing between different parts of the city. Those are your applications, and it's all happening in real time. It's like the central nervous system for your data, making sure everything can talk to each other. And this is really important for things like, tracking what users are doing on a website, or keeping an eye on data from sensors, or even processing, financial transactions as they're happening. Apache Flink kind of takes that real-time data stream idea, and it adds a layer of intelligence on top of it. So imagine it's like the city planner, figuring out how to make the traffic flow better. You can use Flink to find trends, spot things that are out of place, or even make predictions based on what's happening in real time.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So that's the stream part. But what about storing all this data? They seem to have a database for everything.
Yeah, they do. It's about giving people choices. Different options for different situations. So you've got PostgreSQL and MySQL. Those are the reliable workhorses. They're solid and you can use them for pretty much anything. Then you have AlloyDB Omni, which is Google Cloud's version of a database that works like PostgreSQL. And if you're already using a lot of Google Cloud stuff, this one's a good option.
Yeah.
Because it's really fast.
Yeah.
And it works really well with Google's other services.
So they're trying to cover all their bases.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've got streaming and storing. What about serving? Does that mean someone brings me my data on a little silver platter?
Well, kinda. When they talk about serving data, they mean making it easy to use for analyzing, reporting, making decisions, taking all that raw data and turning it into something you can actually use. ClickHouse is like the chef. It can handle huge amounts of data, and it's really good at answering complex questions. It's perfect for finding those really valuable insights in all that data you stored. OpenSearch is more like a detective. It helps you find the specific information you need really quickly. It's good for things like logging, monitoring, exploring data in real time.
So they've got all the pieces. Collect the data, store it,
Yeah.
analyze it, and it's all built on open source.
Mm-hmm.
But what does that actually mean for someone who's working with data every day, like you? What are the real benefits here? Because on their website, they list out these 5 main benefits: optimizing cloud costs, governing security and compliance, accelerating application development, consolidating data infrastructure, and providing world-class service and support.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds good. But are they just buzzwords? Or is there something real there? I'm really curious about how they say they can have all this open source flexibility. and still be super secure. How does that work?
It's a smart strategy, actually.
Yeah.
A lot of companies want both of those things, but
Right.
they often feel like they can't have both.
Yeah, you have to pick one or the other.
Exactly. Avon is saying that they're the experts in open source, so
Uh-huh.
they can handle all the complicated stuff and make sure everything is safe and secure.
Okay, that makes sense.
Especially with all the data breaches and hacking going on, companies are getting really nervous about security.
Yeah, for sure.
So Avon is trying to say, hey, we've got this. We know open source better than anyone.
Yeah.
We know the risks. And we've built our platform to handle them.
So they're basically trying to make open source less scary for companies.
Exactly.
Because some companies are still a little hesitant about it.
Right.
They're not sure if it's safe enough.
Yeah, and Avon is saying, look, it can be just as safe as any other solution, maybe even safer, and we'll take care of all the hard stuff, the updates, the security checks, all of it, so you can focus on your business.
It's like they're selling peace of mind,
Exactly.
which is a pretty valuable thing these days.
Definitely.
Now, before we move on, there's one more thing I wanted to ask about. They talk about these AI-ready data platforms, and they're kind of positioning themselves in that space. Is that just a bunch of hype, or is there something real there?
No, I think there's something to it. AI and data are becoming more and more connected.
Right.
Avon is recognizing that they're building a platform that can handle all the crazy stuff that comes with AI. Like, AI models need tons of data to work.
Yeah, that's true.
And that data needs to be stored and processed and served in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, it has to be efficient, but also secure.
Right, exactly. And Avon is saying, we can do all of that.
So they're not just managing the data, they're getting it ready for AI.
Right.
That's pretty forward thinking,
It is.
especially since AI is popping up everywhere these days. Now, they claim to have over 1,000 customers worldwide, which is a lot. But who are these customers?
Yeah.
And are they actually seeing results? They have this case study from La Redoute, which is a French e-commerce company. So let's look at that for a minute. So according to this guy, Diogo Gomes, he's their head of cloud transformation. He says that they were stuck in this like old school way of doing things with their databases. Their team was spending almost all their time just keeping things running instead of, actually doing anything new and innovative. And then Avon comes along, their fancy open source platform. And La Redoute is able to get rid of all those boring tasks, and their team can finally focus on more important projects. The coolest thing is that they can now set up new databases in minutes instead of weeks. That's crazy. I mean, imagine what you could do with that kind of speed. So what do you think? What does this case study tell us about who Avon is targeting and how they're trying to solve real problems for businesses?
I think this case study shows that a lot of companies are struggling with the same thing. They're spending way too much time just keeping things running.
Yeah, keeping the lights on.
Exactly. And they don't have time to do the things that will actually help their business grow.
Right.
Avon is saying, we can take care of all that for you so you can focus on what matters.
So they're targeting companies that are tired of managing their own data infrastructure.
Right.
They just want someone else to handle it.
Exactly.
So they can focus on their own business.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do they compete with everyone else out there? There are a lot of companies doing this kind of stuff now.
That's true. It's a really competitive market. I think their focus on open source helps.
Okay.
And being able to work with multiple clouds is a big plus.
Yeah, that's definitely something that they talk about a lot.
But that might not be enough.
So they need something else, something that makes them stand out.
Right. It can't just be about the technology.
It has to solve real problems
Right.
for real businesses.
Exactly.
It has to make a difference. Now, speaking of trying to stand out, I noticed that they're participating in a bunch of events, like All Things Open, Big Data Conference, Europe, and even an AWS Immersion Day. So they're getting out there. What do you think they're trying to do with all that?
I think it's a few things. Going to events like All Things Open, which is all about open source, shows that they're really committed to that approach.
Okay.
And it helps them connect with developers who like open source.
Makes sense.
So it's a way to build trust.
Uh-huh.
Then going to events like Big Data Conference Europe lets them show off what they can do
Okay.
and meet potential customers
Right.
and partners. It's a chance to position themselves as experts in the field.
Like thought leaders.
Yeah, exactly.
And then doing the AWS Immersion Day,
It suggests that they're working closely with AWS.
which is one of the big cloud providers.
Right.
And that fits with their whole multi-cloud approach.
Exactly.
So they're reaching out to people who are already using AWS.
Yeah,
It's a smart strategy.
it is.
They're hitting all the angles. Developers, potential customers,
Yeah.
cloud providers. They're not messing around.
No?
Okay, so before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I wanted to mention a few things that people can check out if they want to learn more about Avon. They've got a podcast series called Data R Evolution, which sounds pretty interesting. And they also have some ebooks and reports. There's one called How an Open Source Cloud Data Platform Drives Transformation, which I thought might be relevant. So what do you think? Are these resources worth checking out? And is there anything else you would recommend for people who are interested in Avon or just want to learn more about data in general?
Yeah, I think those resources are worth a look.
All right.
Especially the podcast. It has some good insights.
Yeah.
But I would also say that it's important to look beyond just Avon. There are lots of companies doing interesting things in the data world.
Right.
It's good to get a broader perspective.
So you don't get tunnel vision.
Exactly.
It's like getting a second opinion.
Right.
You want to make sure you're making the best decision. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We talked about their stream store serve thing. We looked at what they're actually offering, and we started to figure out who they're targeting. But the big question is still out there. Can they really be the one platform for everything? We'll keep digging into that in the next part of our deep dive, so stay tuned.
Yeah, that's the question a lot of people are asking, I think. Because things change so fast in the data world. What works today might not work tomorrow. Avon's vision is definitely ambitious, but making a platform that really works everywhere is super hard. There are always going to be differences between cloud providers and different technologies and different ways people use data.
So it's like they're walking a tightrope. They have to be flexible enough to handle all that variety, but also keep things simple enough that people can actually use their platform.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance, and they're going to have to keep adjusting as they grow. And as the market changes, it's like they're trying to build a universal translator for data so you can move your data anywhere and use any technology without having to worry about compatibility issues.
A universal translator for data. That's a great way to put it. But how do they stand out from everyone else? I mean, everyone's making big promises these days.
You're right. It's hard to cut through the noise. I think their multi-cloud approach is good. And the open source focus is definitely a plus, but those might not be enough.
So they need something special, something that makes them different.
Yeah.
What could that be?
I think their secret weapon could be their focus on AI. If they can actually use AI to make data management easier and more efficient and help people get more insights from their data, that could be a game changer.
So it's not just about managing data. It's about actually using it to make better decisions.
Exactly.
It's like having a built-in data scientist.
Right. And that's where their open source approach could really help. They can tap into all the smart people in the open source community to keep improving their platform.
So they're building a whole ecosystem, a community of people who love data.
Yeah.
But as they grow bigger and start working with bigger companies, can they keep that open source spirit alive?
That's a good question. It's going to be a challenge because open source people and big companies often have different priorities.
Yeah, they don't always see eye to eye.
Right. Avon is going to have to find a way to make everyone happy.
Without losing sight of what makes them special.
Exactly.
It's like trying to please two different groups of people at the same time. We'll see if they can pull it off.
Yeah, we will.
But regardless of what happens, I think they're bringing something new to the table.
I agree.
And that's always exciting.
Definitely.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Avon, their vision, their technology, their challenges. But what does it all mean for someone who's working with data every day, like our listeners?
I think the main takeaway is that Avon is trying to solve real problems. For businesses that are struggling to manage their data, they're offering a new way to do things.
A simpler way.
Yeah, and a way that takes advantage of AI.
So it's not just about building bigger databases. It's about making data more useful,
Exactly.
more valuable to the business.
Yes.
So Avon is showing us what the future of data management might look like.
I think so.
A future where data is not a problem, but a solution.
Yeah.
A tool for innovation and growth.
I agree.
That's pretty compelling vision.
It is.
So are they going to succeed?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But they're definitely on the right track.
Their commitment to open source, the multi-cloud thing, and their focus on AI. Those are all good signs.
I agree.
They're asking the right questions, challenging the way things are done.
That's important.
And that's exciting.
It is.
Okay. I think it's time to move on to the next part of our deep dive. We've talked about Avon's goals, their strategy, and how they fit into the data world. But there's one more thing we need to talk about. How do they fit into the bigger picture of the data ecosystem? How do their choices affect the way we all think about and use data? We'll tackle those questions in the final part of our deep dive, so stay tuned for the grand finale.
Yeah. Avon's place in this whole data world is interesting. They're not just another company selling a data platform. It's more like they want to shake things up, push for a future where data is more open, easier to understand, and used in smarter ways.
Yeah, it's like they're saying data shouldn't be so complicated, that only few people can understand it. It should be something everyone can use to make better decisions, solve problems, make things better.
Exactly. And that's where their focus on open source and making things easy to use comes in. They're trying to break down the barriers that have kept people from using data effectively.
It's almost like they want to make data more democratic. So it's not just for the tech experts.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. They want to give everyone the tools and knowledge they need to understand the world around them, which is something I really believe in.
It's a great goal.
Yeah.
But it's not easy.
Yeah.
Because the data world is changing all the time. New technologies, new challenges.
Right. They're going to have to be really adaptable and innovative. To keep up, they need to keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible, but also stay true to their values of openness and accessibility.
So it's like they're balancing on a tightrope between being cutting edge and being user-friendly.
Exactly. That's what makes it so interesting to watch them. It's not just about building a company. It's about starting a movement, changing the way we all think about data.
It's like a data revolution.
I like that. A data revolution. It really captures what they're trying to do.
And it makes me hopeful about the future of data. If they can make data easier to use and understand, then everyone wins.
I agree. The possibilities are huge. We're just getting started with what we can do with data.
Well, I think we've officially reached our data limit for one episode. Time to come up for air after our deep dive into Avon. Hopefully you learned something new. And if you have more questions than answers now, that's a good thing. That's what a deep dive is all about. Making you curious, challenging what you thought you knew, and opening your mind to new possibilities. So keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep pushing the boundaries of what you can do with data. Until next time, happy data diving.
Thanks for listening to the Nordic Venture Show. Don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more stories of innovation from the Nordics.